Well,
I know he's really bad.
they can't figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's kind of losing weight. I don't know.
I know, it's really.
And he must be like weak or something, right?
Well, she said he still goes to the hall.
Yeah, but he's not out there like standing 6 hours, going door to door and all that.
He's not like working.
I wonder how hard they beat you up, to do that stuff if you don't feel like it. I don't know.
I don't know.
You did, boy, both of you. This is amazing.
They single today.
That's fine. You gotta look it up. Wait, did everybody go?
Yeah.
Wow. Instead of your big pots of food, you just have normal. That's nice. So you're off? Did you work the weekend?
It's not
No, it's
hard,
not.
but it's something.
Wonderful. You will enjoy.
So I think they're gonna.
They're having a couple's weekend with their kids gone. It's Valentine's weekend. Yeah. It's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just kind of living together.
Okay.
She doesn't speak much English.
I should move this.
So they don't do a lot of.
It's optimistic. Somebody will come.
Maybe so. I didn't need one to stay there.
Doesn't have to do that.
See. No.
What about that other thing?
What's that?
We're not using the big one anymore? Oh, it is? That one?
It's not hooked up. I don't know how to do it.
Looks flat.
The TV?
The big one.
Yeah, I don't know, he said he's having problems
I don't know, where's,
It hasn't been recognizing the HDMI cable.
Oh, okay. Well, I can see everybody on there. I mean, can those people see you? So
It looks
Linda's.
like it, yeah. Cause I can see them.
Mhm.
it's a little one beside, yeah.
Hello.
Hi there.
Come in.
Oh, you wanna go Bible? Oh, your Bible? Oh,
Last week, somebody snuck in behind there, but that looks really narrow for person behind the chair.
yeah.
Got stuff already.
Well, I've got about 1 minute.
Just wondering about Linda.
Yeah. Barbara was saying her husband's not doing
Well,
well.
I don't know if it's a change. It's been kind of
Yeah,
for months.
progressive. So, let's remember her, and Jan is another one that we can keep in our prayers.
She's not sick of, physically.
We don't know.
Well,
She's,
She fell for sure.
Oh,
We
she
don't
did?
know. We don't know all the other. Laura heard a little from her.
okay, what's that?
She said, I will, she verified that she fell. She said, I will be okay. Various people have been offering to get her stuff, to help her. She communicated with me last Sunday, but she hasn't responded since, so you can try.
well, I sent her a card, not too
That's
religious, because she's not sure. So I sent her Charlie Brown.
I love Charlie.
So maybe she'll.
Hopefully I wasn't missing the football.
No,
We don't know.
I didn't say that.
I will be, sounds like she's still got a little way to go.
Yeah.
Anyway, where are we? We're in Revelation. We left off at 666, which is the end of chapter 13 of Revelation. And we were wondering why somebody printed the number 666 on the brickwork of our building
Yeah.
on the outside a couple years ago. It probably wasn't a complimentary message. Probably was,
Anybody who would deface has got an issue.
yeah, that's true, but interesting that they use that number 666. There's a lot of things they could, it shows somebody who has some awareness of the scripture, I guess, or has heard that from somewhere as 666. The Bible tells us that the number of the beast and the number of the man is 666. And we left off last time trying to talk about how one of the, there have been various interpretations of it. One of the great 19th century commentators by the name of Adam Clarke reached the conclusion that it was the Latin Church. Now, he was a devout member of the Church of England, so it was probably kind of tainted his effort there. But some have seen that. But probably the most common interpretation of that is an arrangement of the numbers associated with the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, which comes up with Nero Caesar. And that's what I'd say the majority of commentators have come up with. You're free to do some numerology computations yourself. But anyway, why do you suppose it's given in the form of a number here? It's been a fascination over the centuries, this number 666. As we said last time, it's pointed out 6 is 1 less than 7. 7 seems to be the number of completeness. We have 7 seals, 7 trumpets. In chapter 2, we're going to see 7 bowls, or in the old version, 7 vials. So if that's completeness, and there's a lot of 7s in the Bible, right? 7 days. So 6 would be incompleteness. The number of the beast, the number of the man. I don't know. Maybe it's a code. Anyway, it's revealed that way to John.
Disguise the name. Disguise the name of the beast, because the book fell into the wrong hands. Might be more trouble for the churches.
That's what some have speculated, that it's kind of a code, although anybody reading it will get to some references to Babylon. And what is that? Maybe it goes along with that. Is that a code, or is that just a metaphor that's used? Is it something that is it's where a revelation or a vision is given to John, and it's meant for him to write what he saw without trying to interpret it, so that it's up to the readers to interpret and be encouraged by it, for surely that is the message to the church at that time and the church of today, to be encouraged. It's been preserved for us through the hand of God, as have the rest of the scriptures, for a purpose. Anyway, I don't have any more to say about it unless you've done some computations during the week.
We make it clear, I don't know if we made it clear last week, the mark of the beast is not a physical mark. It's not a tattoo, it's not a microchip inserted into you,
Yeah,
but it's your allegiance.
there,
Okay.
yeah,
Your allegiance, who is your allegiance to? I mean,
some of the historians point out that in the Roman Empire, at least in parts of it, in order to be able to buy and sell goods, you had to have a mark or a token. Probably not like our social security card, but some kind of an authorization from the Roman government. And maybe this has something to do with that. We'll see some language that seems to go along with that as we go along in the book. That may be the mark of approval of the Roman government that you were worshiping the right God, the Caesar, or whatever other local god was in your area. We'll see more about that. The mark, then there's the mark of Christ and the mark of God. And why that concept, the Roman use of that type of thing kind of suggests that would be something that would be familiar to the people. Anyway, chapter 14. Then I looked, and there before me was the Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000 who had his name and his father's name. Mount Zion. Where's Mount Zion? What's that?
Is that in Jerusalem?
That's yeah. Mount Zion is a part of Jerusalem. The Temple Mount, you might call it. What pages?
well, the Hebrew says we've come to it.
Yeah,
If you believe we've come to it.
that's what I was looking for.
It is
Hebrews
heaven.
12:22. We'll just take time to look at that. Standing on Mount Zion. But you have come to Mount Zion, to the heavenly Jerusalem, the city of the living God. You have come to thousands upon thousands of angels in joyful assembly, to the church of the firstborn, whose names are written in heaven. You have come to God, the judge of all men, to the spirits of righteous men made perfect, to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. So that's the writer of Hebrews, perhaps expanding on the use of that term. So it's a heavenly Jerusalem, not just the hill or the hill in the earthly Jerusalem. 144,000. Who are they? We met 144,000 back in chapter 7, right? There were 12,000 from each of 12 tribes. We could say the 12 tribes, except that some are not there. It's a little bit different list than in the Old Testament, but surely it's a representation of saved people. And who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads, which is kind of in line with the mark of the beast. These had the mark of the Lord, the mark of Christ and God, instead of the mark of the beast. And I heard a sound from heaven like the roar of rushing waters and like a loud peal of thunder. The sound I heard was like that of harpists playing on their harps. That's a pleasant sound if you've ever symphony and listened to the harp.
The harp, I said the harp was joy. It expresses joy.
Okay, we're going to see the harp later. They sang a new song before the throne and before the four living creatures and the elders. No one could learn the song except the 144,000 who had been redeemed from the earth. We have a song in our book, I forget the name of it, called The New Song, right? Yeah, it's kind of a complicated song. But we've tried it from time to time. But what's new about this song? Why is it a new song? We're going to run into the song of Moses and the Lamb. Say it's there. What's new here? What have we been talking about? When the seventh trumpet sounded, what's our topic? The final victory over sin and death, the final vindication of the Lord. In the past, there have been some warnings, some partial warnings, if you will. Things have been destroyed, a third of the water, a third of this or that. Here we're going to run into some things that are more complete. So it's a new song of final victory. Those who did not defile themselves with women, for they kept themselves pure. They follow the Lamb wherever he goes. I was interested in that, when they come to differentiate between the sin and the sinful and the pure, what do they choose? What is chosen here? Well, they haven't bowed to the beast and worshiped the false gods, the false religion of the, what is the second beast there? The beast of out of the earth. But it's interesting, those who did not defile themselves with women. Interesting that is mentioned. There's a lot of other sins that could have been listed.
So is it just this 144,000, is it just men?
Well, we would say it's representative of the class. Well, what do you think?
We saw in the churches that there was a problem. Most of the churches that God had a criticism about, not every church that he had a criticism about, but some were listening to the teachings of Balaam and the Nicolaitans, and they were practicing sexual morality.
That was a serious problem in the Roman Empire, evidently. It's a serious problem now if you read the press, and it's just a free-for-all. And that people are expected to be immoral.
I don't think it's meant to be literal that, that you can, there's room for forgiveness, i.e. that, Paul speaks about you once for fornicators, adulterers, sexual immoral. Now, you've been washed, been made clean by Christ.
I wonder about the word woman. Is it the same you would use as for your wife, or is it these are other women?
It's the same word you would use for your wife. Gune, wife, woman, wife.
It could be either one. But of course, the worship of the idols is, like you say, so often described as spiritual adultery. So maybe there's an aspect of that. But anyway, those are some practices that separate people from God. These are people that have not done that. They keep themselves pure. They follow the Lamb wherever he goes. They were purchased from among men and offered as first fruits to God and the Lamb. Offered as first. These are martyrs, basically, is what they're saying. Or what is being revealed to John. No lie was found in their mouths. They are blameless. I'm sure the temptation was there to equivocate and well, I really believe in God and Christ, but I'm going to go along with these worship of the emperor and the idols in order to get along in the world. And that's not pleasing to God, evidently, because he differentiates here. These are martyrs who've been true to God and given their lives. That's kind of the way I read it.
The lie could also mean a pop, that you've abandoned the faith, that you're a liar, you've abandoned the faith. But they're saying they have no lie. So they kept the faith.
What's the point? Why does John see that? I think it's to assure him that there are a lot of people who have been faithful. And it's to set them forth as an example to John, who is seeing this, and to whoever reads this. There's a lot of people who've given their lives on account of their faith. It's not just a few.
That's why I wonder about that number, 144,000.
Yeah.
What about that 144,001? What about that guy?
Yeah.
That's why I think it's just a symbolic number.
I think
That's
so.
a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's a lot more than 144,000.
Yeah. Over the centuries,
Yeah.
perhaps. But, I mean, even if it's just 144,000, that's a lot of people to have given their lives. We read about a few in our time, and Book of Martyrs, I don't know how many people in that tradition, but that's a lot of people to just voluntarily die for their faith. Then I saw another angel flying in midair. And he had the eternal gospel to proclaim to those who live on the earth, to every nation, tribe, language, and people. Interesting, they use that word eternal. What does that mean, the eternal gospel? Well, you could say it's the same message for all time. The message of the good news of Christ is not going to change over the centuries or millennia, however long it is until Christ comes. But it also is interesting, it reaches back. The gospel has been before the creation of the world. There was the good news of Christ because God knew the creation would need that. God knew people would need Christ. And so this is a plan, not because other plans have failed, not because God is surprised that people fell away. It's always been God's plan to send Christ, for Christ to die, to suffer and die. The eternal gospel. Interesting. He said in a loud voice, "Fear God and give him glory, because the hour of his judgment has come. Worship him who made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and the springs of water." So this is the culmination. The hour of his judgment has come, the final judgment. A second angel followed and said, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, which made all the nations drink the maddening wine of her adulteries." And what's Babylon?
Probably Rome.
Probably Rome. Why do you say that?
It's gonna fall hard.
Well,
It was great at that time, the greatest
Yeah.
city in the world,
yeah,
greatest empire in the world.
Yeah, but my problem with Rome, well, I take on Jerusalem. I take Jerusalem, Babylon to be Jerusalem because Babylon oppressed the saints and destroyed. And Babylon and the Jews were the ones who oppressed the Christians, and they destroyed the temple of God, the Jews. And also Rome doesn't, according Rome doesn't fall until 300 and, okay, I'm not clear about the fall of Rome, but there's supposed to be civil wars that start 313, and then at 376 AD, Goths invade Rome. It's a pretty long time, okay,
Yeah, but,
for to tell Christians to say, well, yeah, 250 years from now, Rome's going to fall. That
Well,
just seems to be a little,
the Lord,
a bit of a stretch of a time, not to say that it can't, and then I'm certainly, the emperors will fall. We will see that the beast is going to fall, but,
250 years, it sounds like a long time, but
yeah,
it comes around pretty fast.
yeah, but
That's
here
right.
you're facing the persecution, at this time, that anyways, you gotta study what Babylon did. I don't see Rome is called Rome in the New Testament, and Rome is the residence of Jews, Christians, and Gentiles. Rome is the place of Paul's imprisonment. Rome is, what else? The place where Paul has to testify. So if you look in a concordance and you study the word Rome, that's what you're going to come up with. We don't see anything in the New Testament until we come really up to the book of Revelation. We don't see Rome doing really anything other than being drawn into this thing by the Jews.
well, it's a time of looking back as this revelation is shown to John. He's saying these are things that are going to happen. Doesn't say they're happening right then and there when John is seeing the vision. These are things that are going to happen. These are things that can serve as an encouragement. That Rome seems like it's eternal, but John is shown that it's not. And I think that's to be his message. Remember, we learned earlier that God is not through with John. He's got some work for him to do, to tell other people about what he's seen. And
Rome's never called a woman in Scripture. Rome's never called a prostitute harlot. Or
we're going to see later
or
on,
adulteress
though,
in that
that
Scripture.
the place.
Yeah, they don't refer to it openly because of the reprisals.
What is an adulteress in Scripture? You have to define that.
An adulteress is a woman that's committed adultery. What do you mean?
Okay, but how is it used in the Old Testament?
Well, we'll get to more specificity on this point in the 17th chapter, when we see mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and of the abomination of the earth. And it seems that it has 7 hills. And what has 7 hills?
Yeah.
It's sat on 7
Rome is
hills.
known as that. One of them is the Palatine, not Palatine,
Well, it's not
Illinois.
Palatine.
but I don't know the name of all of the 7 hills of Rome, but I just remember.
I'm just thinking of this, who made all the nations, to drink.
Yes,
I mean, how,
Yes.
I don't.
I don't know how Jerusalem
was forced.
really did that.
Yeah, I'm thinking real Babylon really made people bow to the
That's
statue,
right.
and it seemed like it was more
That's right.
forceful.
It's
But we're
not,
talking theology, we're not talking politics.
well, Babylon is a dusty plain right at this time. Babylon was kind of the Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel all talk about Babylon is going to fall. And it did. And it became a dusty wasteland. Even until today, you can go there. Here's where Babylon said it's a desert. I don't know, maybe there's
Yeah,
some
well, that's because of the river.
nomads there, but anyway. So I think it's a reference to Rome, but you can interpret it how you would. Maybe the other major interpretation is that it's just evil in general.
Yeah,
That makes no
It's
sense.
just,
That makes sense.
That makes no sense to say it's the world. They try, that's the view that the book of Revelation is covering the entire Christian history.
Mhm.
So it's just
Yeah.
evil mankind.
yeah.
The beast is evil mankind, the prostitute's evil mankind, Babylon's evil mankind, everybody's evil mankind. So, that's how they want a generic size.
but
They want to make it generic.
I guess we might say that the Babylon of the first century may be Rome, maybe the Babylon of this 21st century. I don't know what it is. What would the Babylon of this 21st century be? Maybe not a geographical place, but maybe just humanism without God. I don't know if we can,
Secularism.
in the past, Babylon would have been identified as Berlin under Hitler or as Moscow under Stalin.
Depends on what country you live in.
It depends on your
It could be
perspective
United States.
as far as that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Washington DC now,
Chicago,
or Chicago.
plenty of evil in Chicago.
There's a fair amount of corruption in Chicago, our former South Side. The man has just been convicted of certain counts, Mr. Anyway, so fear God and give him, that's really the point. Fallen is Babylon. That's to be an encouraging thing. The kingdom of this world is defeated. A third angel followed them and said in a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and his image and receives his mark on his forehead, there's that mark again, the mark of Christ or the mark of the beast. One of the point is there's a clear differentiation. Some people have the mark of the beast, some people have the mark of Christ. There's not going to be any ambiguity in the judgment of God. It's going to be pretty clear. He too will drink of the wine of God's fury, which has been poured full strength into the cup of his wrath, not a partial judgment, but a full judgment. He will be tormented with burning sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and the Lamb, and the smoke of their torment rises forever and ever. That's an interesting way to put it, isn't it? Because so many today preach what? Or some people, let's put it that way, preach what?
Annihilation.
The bad people are not going to suffer. They're just not going to exist in any way, shape, or form when they die. God will give eternal life to the people who bear the mark of the Lord. But this seems to talk about eternal torment. The smoke of their torment rises forever. There is no rest, day or night, for those who worship the beast and his image, or for anyone who receives the mark of his name. So that's pretty frightening.
So we get that saying, there's no rest for the wicked.
Yeah.
Comes out of
Yeah.
Revelation there.
Seems in Jesus' teaching this that this continuing torment. There's no rest day or night or for anyone who received. This calls for patient endurance on the part of the saints who obey God's commandments and remain faithful to Jesus. That's part of it's part of the message, God's message. We don't hear a lot about that anymore. The torments of the afterlife for those who are not faithful to God. But this kind of says that what is being revealed to John there is something that should strengthen our patient endurance on the part of the saints. That thought is part of God's message. Don't be in that eternal torment. People want to put that out of their minds and say, well, it doesn't really matter what I do, because the worst that could happen, I'm just going to cease to exist. But that's
not
the message. What's that?
So for me, that's not that bad.
Yeah.
Might even be preferred.
Yeah. Yeah, if we think of it, that, that would be unfair in a sense, because we want, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. We want those who have caused so much suffering on earth to experience some suffering. We leave it up to God. So then I heard a voice from heaven saying, right, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, they will rest from their labor, for their deeds will follow them. Where do you hear that? Funerals. At least I've heard it at a lot of funerals of Christians. Blessed are the dead who die in the Lord. They will rest from their labor, for their deeds will follow them. And, it kind of makes you wonder, if I die, are there going to be any deeds for anybody? Remember that good deeds, just
That's kind of a strange to me too, because you can't work your way to heaven, but it still talks about your deeds.
Yeah.
So how does that?
That's the way you show your love for Jesus. Is what you do for others. So it kind of makes you think, what if somebody's gonna kind of preach my funeral? What are they gonna say? He was a good White Sox fan. No, I don't think that's gonna be part of it. Yeah.
People know how to puff up almost anybody nowadays.
That's true.
Yeah.
They're an angel. They did perfect. They did.
Yeah. Some of these.
I only know one person that had a bad. My grandfather. That's so bad. Said my father's father.
And they would dare say it?
Said, my mother said the minister said he's the worst person I ever met.
Oh.
The most evil person.
You said that at a funeral?
Yeah. He didn't have a good reputation, but that's pretty harsh. But she said that's what he said.
Boy,
It's very nervy.
I know.
you wouldn't want to hear that.
So we got a church funeral?
The guy's dead.
I don't know what kind of funeral it was, but
He must have really been evil.
yeah, he
I've heard something similar. Somebody said about another person's funeral that they couldn't find anything positive about the deceased to say.
Oh.
Wow.
it's
You
very
know,
similar, yeah.
Usually preachers find something good to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
But maybe a member of the funeral party, no. Maybe they wouldn't.
I don't think he's a church
anyway.
guy. My grandfather wasn't. So. I know it's pretty harsh, right?
Your dad's side?
Yeah, my father's father. Yeah, and my mother told me this because she went to the funeral. Yeah.
Blessed are
Yes.
those.
As this chapter 14 of Revelation, when studying with a Jehovah Witness is a different thing together. When studying with Catholics, It's different thing together.
Okay,
Always they refer verse 4 to, I think, 5, that is foreign their dominion. That's the reason why their priests stay away from women. They are those who follow, the root of Christ. So they are the 144,000 referred to.
the priests,
as
right, the Jehovah's Witness.
Jehovah's Witnesses
Believe in
are
144,000, everybody else is kind of in a sub.
1 to 40.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah, they get off on that.
And the Catholics too, their priests are those, that's the reason why they stay away from
Celibacy, yeah.
no marriage and this kind of things.
We
So, but it's quite interesting because when John was having this revelation, he was in Rome, in prison. While having this revelation,
So he was on Patmos.
he said,
He was on the Isle of
Island of
Patmos,
Patmos. That's why Paul was a prophet.
outside of Rome.
You got it mixed up.
This is John.
I mean, John.
Yeah.
I said, while John was having this revelation, where was he?
He says he was on the Isle of Patmos.
Yes, our purpose.
Yeah, he was in prison there.
Oh, we don't know.
Yes, yeah, he says for the sake of
Yeah.
gospel.
Mm-hmm.
The authorities wanted to get rid of him. He was a leader in the church. He had a great following, so they kind of isolated him on the island.
Because I was still thinking about the Babylon here, because this Babylon is not referring to Iraq,
Right,
but where from this Babylon, now how are we going to defend this Babylon, where we can locate it?
right.
Like the way you said, how everybody can think of it, can be in Chicago or wherever.
Not Chicago.
Not in state.
So, okay, so blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. What about the people in the past? Interesting. They're going to rise and to be blessed also, but this is the final victory here, the battle. And
Well, Jesus said something different, similar, but Thomas and the other apostles see
yeah,
the physical resurrection. And, Thomas touches Jesus and sees the wounds, and blessed are you, blessed are those who believe, who see and believe. Blessed are those who do not see and believe. In other words, both sides are blessed, even though we have not seen, the resurrected Lord. We are as blessed as the others, as those who have seen the resurrected Lord.
blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on.
Well, I think his focus is on those who die and not necessarily in the past. I mean, he's not more concerned about the martyrs who are dying
Yeah,
than the whole salvation history.
I've always thought about the last verse. I'll just mention it here. The last verse of the book of the prophet Daniel. It's a encouraging thing. As for you, go your way till the end. You will rest, and then at the end of the days, you will rise to receive your allotted inheritance. You wonder, does that mean he's just asleep? I don't know. Some people have speculated that, but what it literally says, then at the end of the days you will receive your it's allotted in here, you will receive your allotted land in the promised land. He'll be back in the anyway. That's a different story, but he will rest. The harvest of the earth, this says, And just starting at verse 14. I looked, and there before me was a white cloud, and seated on the cloud was one like a son of man, with a crown of gold on his head and a sharp sickle in his hand. Oh boy. Then another angel came out of the temple, the heavenly temple, similar to the model for the earthly temple, and called in a loud voice to him who was sitting on the cloud, take your sickle and reap, because the time to reap has come, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. So he who was seated on the cloud swung his sickle over the whole earth, and the earth was harvested. So that's the image
That's
of the sickle.
the first part of salvation. First part is salvation. The second part will be judgment.
Yeah, we'll get
What's
we'll
that?
get to that. The earth is harvested. Well, we'll go on to another angel. Another angel came out of the temple in heaven, and he too had a sharp sickle. Still another angel who had charge of the fire. So there's three angels here. Called in a loud voice to him who had the sharp sickle, take your sharp sickle and gather the clusters of grapes from the earth's vine, because its grapes are ripe. So we know what the crop is, grapes. That is something familiar in Palestine. Sit under your vine, and your olive tree was the promise of God to his people. Anyway, the angel swung his sickle on the earth, gathered its grapes, and threw them into the great winepress of God's wrath. What is the winepress? We haven't.
Smash the grapes.
Yeah, but what do you do with grapes? We pop them in our mouth and eat them, but what are they talking about?
This is talking about making wine, I guess.
Yeah. And how do you do that?
Violent.
Tread 'em out?
You tread them out, you put them in a big vat, and people get in there and stomp on them, and then the liquid flows out from the side.
Mhm.
And in the Holy Land, they would dig a pit in the ground, and they would have an opening into a deeper pit. And so they put the grapes in the one, and people would stomp around, and it would go through the opening into the deeper pit, and there would be the liquid that would be used to make wine. Now, where do we see that on television?
I love Lucy.
I Love Lucy. If you're of a certain
That's-
age, there was an I Love Lucy episode where she was stomping out the grapes. Anyway, but that's how they did. And that is, if you're a grape, it's not the most pleasant thing. That's the point here. They were trampled in the winepress outside the city. It's not something that you do. Jesus was sacrificed outside the city. And blood flowed out of the press, rising as high as the horses' bridles for a distance of 1,600 stadia, or about 180 miles, which happens to be the distance from top to bottom of the Israel.
The whole land was covered with blood.
Yeah, but what a way to describe the judgment. He's trampling out the vintage word, grapes of wrath or stone. This image has been used in that song.
The vine in the New Testament is only used of Christ. The vine in the Old Testament is used of Israel and agriculture.
Yeah,
The vine is never applied to Rome. The vine is never applied to the world. That's all you have. You can study that yourself with a concordance.
yeah. God's people are described as a vineyard in Isaiah, as a place that was protected. God built a wall around his vineyard. He had a tower where they could see these invaders were coming. But he said, because of sin, I'm breaking down the wall and allowing my vineyard to be overcome. That's an image. So it's not the only image of the world as the vineyard and the judgment in that way. So anyway, that's the harvest of the earth. It's a frightening one. You don't want to be part of the
Well, grapes represent wicked people, right?
yeah,
Being shambled.
yeah. That's good. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I want to be a grape.
We'll take it up there next time. We have 7, again, we've had 7 seals, 7 trumpets. Now we're gonna have 7 angels with 7 plagues with bowls or shallow containers that are kind of dumped on the earth. The King James Version says vials. This one says bowls. I don't know what yours said. Anyway. We'll talk more about Babylon too. There's a